think we need to start the webinar on time. I mean, we are on time. Many colleagues, many friends, who have already registered, they might be, joining us during the webinar session, but then I think we need to start right now. So, namaste and very good afternoon to everyone. First, happy, especially we have like South Asia is full of diversities, and that's why these are the things that we celebrate together. I know in India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, Vietnam, many of us celebrated the New Year yesterday. Just to introduce myself, my name is Pavan Roy. I'm a co-founder and currently serving as a president at Center for Social Change. I am delighted to welcome today's webinar speakers, moderator, and participants to another episode of Center for Social Change series. We often conduct webinars, and this is also one part of it. Really excited to see many of you. Media and technology itself played a role every one of us. As a continuity to non-violent civil resistance webinar series, today we are hosting a webinar on role of media and technology in contemporary civil rights struggle in South Asia. I would like to take this moment to thank Dr. Sumit from Amity University, and he's also Asian Action Institute, fellows alumni. He joined Asian Action Institute in 2019. So he has a good connection with Nepal, Center for Social Change, and a non-violent movement around South Asia. Similarly, our longtime friend and colleague, Mr. Binay Guragai. And I would also like to thank Farzana Ali for accepting our invitation to become a part of today's webinar. So before starting the main session, I would like to take a moment to introduce the organization. I mean, many of you know, Center for Social Change, but there are more new participants also. For them, Center for Social Change is a social think tank organization established in the year 2015. Our primary focus is more like to actually work on the issues like research, education, advocacy, and civic engagement. Evidence-based policy advocacy through research is at the core of Center for Social Change work. Our work is mainly focused on issues around conflict transformation, dialogue and peace building, democracy, democratic participation, governance, migration, informal sector workers, civic space, and civil society development, and largely on public policy engagement. We have published several research reports, infographics, policy briefs that can be found by visiting our website and other social media platforms. I will also take this platform as an opportunity to request all the participants to like and follow our social media pages for updates and other information regularly. Coming back to the topic of the webinar, both conventional media and new media have played a crucial role in transforming the societies. In the today's world, we have seen so many online movements, digital activism being successful. We witnessed a lot of past well-known movements, from Gandhi's non-violent movement during the struggle for independence to the recent farmer movements we have seen in India. We have also witnessed the garment workers movement in Bangladesh. Similarly, we have also seen a lot of other non-violent movements going around in several cities and several corners of South Asian context. Nepal has also witnessed so many civil resistance campaigns and non-violent movements in the last few decades. And today, social media is a terrific source of information. Some information played a constructive role and some played a destructive role to guide and misguide the public. In this context, today's webinar will help to explore in-depth information regarding how the role of the media and technology is important to shape the South Asia civil resistance movement. So we also know that non-violent movements can lead to meaningful systematic change. Many studies proposes that non-violent civil resistance is far more successful in creating broad-based changes than violent campaigns. Therefore, without further delay, I would like to pass the floor to the moderator of today's webinar, Ms. Shraddha Khadka, will be moderating today's session. Just a quick introduction of Shraddha. She's working as a senior research officer at Center for Social Change, and she has her utmost interest in the field of governance, migration, and informal sector workers. And she has been, working in Center for Social Change from the last, 1.5 years, almost 2 years. So I hand over to Ms. Shraddha, who will take webinar further. And I would like to thank all of you who joined, especially to the speakers. I know you all are busy, things are dramatically changing in the South Asian context, and we have witnessed the Pakistan, political changes recently. So there might be a lot of things to discuss in today's webinar. So the floor is yours, Shraddha.
Thank you, Pawan sir. I think everybody can hear me clearly. Okay. Namaste, everyone. A very good afternoon from Kathmandu. My name is Shraddha Khadka. I'm a senior research officer here at CSC and your moderator for today. I would like to welcome you to the 13th episode of our webinar series. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and a few more participants are still joining us. I will welcome you as well, and special thanks to our technical team who are supporting us from behind the scenes. As Pawan has introduced about CSC already, I'd just like to add a little bit to that. I'd like to share that CSC has been continuously working towards promoting democratic freedom of expressions and believes firmly in creating productive public spaces for vibrant discussions on various topics. In the past, we have successfully conducted webinars on themes varying from governance in health, education, and our recent endeavors have focused on issues around climate change as well. So coming to today's topic, CSC, through various efforts, has been an advocate for peace building and nonviolent civil resistance. On this matter, our previous webinar series had excellent discussions from experts from Nepal, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka on nonviolent aspects of women's rights, farmers' rights, and climate justice as well. So continuing with the theme, today we are joined to discuss on the role of media and technology in contemporary civil rights struggles, especially in South Asian context. Its significance is especially highlighted since the crisis that was brought by the pandemic. Social media platforms and mainstream news and mass media, like Pawan said already, have been our primary sources of information in some ways, and they have also provided a sense of community support, economic opportunities during the tough times. Not only that, a mindful use of social media and technology has tremendously supported in fundraising for campaigns, building social solidarity, digital mobilization of various pursuits for justice, or even display of frustrations towards governance, and has provided people a new channel for activism, like hashtag movements or internet activisms. But media and technology also has some dark sides, like fake news, misinformation, manipulation through mass media cultures, etc. So considering all these aspects, how successful has the use of media and technology been in carrying out nonviolent resistance? How do they even work? To elaborate on that, we have an excellent panel of speakers today who have had years of experience on the topic and have made immeasurable impacts through their works. To briefly introduce them, we have Dr. Sumit Narula. He's a PhD in electronic media and conflict resolution from Punjab University. He's presently working as Deputy Dean of Research and Director of Amity School of Communication at Amity University. He's also the chairman of the recently established Center for Excellence for Detection of Fake News and Disinformation, and has taken hundreds and plus workshops on the topic, how to catch fake, predatory, clone journals in academics, and has developed a course with Taylor's University, Malaysia, on it. Dr. Sumit is also an author and the editor-in-chief of the biannual Scopus Indexed and UGC Care listed journal named Journal of Content, Community and Communication, which is the only communication journal by any university in India. The core areas of his research are new media, convergence media, media research, fake news detection, peace building, conflict resolution, etc. And he has spoken about academic integrity at various platforms. We'd like to welcome you to the webinar, Dr. Sumit.
Thank you. And I'm the alumni of Center for Social Change also. So
Right.
that's also my introduction. That's also my introduction. Yeah.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Farzana Ali. She's joining us from Pakistan. She has been working as a journalist in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan for more than 24 years. She's the bureau chief in Aaj News Peshawar. Most of her work is based on human rights issues and terrorism, specifically highlighting stories of women. In the span of her association with print media for more than 8 years, Ms. Farzana has written several articles and feature stories on women, human rights, and many other social issues. During the war on terror, she has done a live show, Hot Frontier, from Peshawar, which was actually the first live show on mainstream media from Peshawar that was ever done by a woman journalist. In her course of career, Ms. Farzana has got the opportunity to meet hundreds of women who were temporarily displaced from their areas due to conflict, and she was able to tell their stories and voice their issues through her reportings. Her work is especially significant because her contributions have been able to break the glass ceiling and raise concerns and dialogues about issues that are rarely talked about, especially in Pakhtun societies. We welcome you, Ms. Ali. I think, okay. Okay, moving on, Mr. Binay Shekhar Kuragai. He's a radio journalist with more than 20 years of experience of working with local, national, and international media and communication for development organizations in Nepal. Currently, he's the executive director of Antenna Foundation. For several years, he has been providing trainings to journalists on radio program production, radio station management, journalist safety, conflict sensitivity, media laws, code of ethics, etc. Mr. Binay is the co-founder of mailreport.net, which is a blogging platform, and the creator of Nepal Radio Lab, that's an e-learning platform. He often writes columns on contemporary socio-political issues for print and online media, and has worked with local organizations in Bangladesh and Pakistan to build the capacity of production of audio messages for youth and entrepreneurs. He's an advocate for press freedom, right to information, internet freedom, human rights and governance, and produces audiovisual messages with an aim of transforming the lives of ordinary citizens of Nepal who are deprived from access to information. We welcome you, Mr. Binay.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. I would like to let you know that today's webinar is scheduled to be around 90 minutes long. Our speakers will be provided a maximum of 20 minutes each to put forward their views. I will be keeping a track of time and will give you a reminder a few minutes before. And as much as time allows, we will be taking questions from our participants today towards the end of the event. So I request you to drop your questions or your thoughts in the chat box of our Zoom screen. Once again, thank you all for joining us. So to begin with, I would like to put forward a common question for all our panelists, and we can take turns answering them. I know Ms. Ali has prepared a presentation. We will work on that accordingly. So the question goes, based on your experiences and observations, what role does media and technology play in initiating any nonviolent movement, or mobilizing people, or even sustaining the movement, especially in your country's context? How has the media and technology influenced or impacted the struggles of people? If you could share about the kind of information that are important to create effective communication and participants in civil resistance, especially in societies that have diverse backgrounds in terms of race, ethnicity, gender, regions, etc. And the positive roles and responsibilities of mass media and technology in achieving justice through civil resistance, especially by evoking the nonviolent sentiments among the people. So you can sum up your answer. These are the questions that we put forward. I think we can start with Dr. Sumit.
Yeah. So it's very difficult to stay non-violent at the moment because we can see the war going on in Europe, and the impact is everywhere. So when I was studying Gandhi and his philosophy of non-violence, I was pretty much fascinated. I'm too fascinated till now, and we are teaching this philosophy. But sometimes we ponder upon that: do we really require this philosophy? Because everywhere they think that war is the only solution. So now coming to the civil resistance, we had this movement, the Kisan Andolan here, which was a civil resistance movement against the government. And the government withdrew those bills. I have read that bills were good, not that bad. Government tried to convince the farmers, but they couldn't get it convinced. And formally the bills have to be withdrawn from the Lok Sabha as well as from the Vidhan Sabha, because there were elections also. So the elections also played a major role. The government wanted to win those elections, and for winning they have to withdraw those laws, and at the end of the day they got 4 states also. They won the 4 states. So basically news, social media occupies a dominant role everywhere in our life, which religion also does. And earlier religion was everything for us, now news and social media is everything for us. And social media plays an important role because everything whatever we are getting today now from even Ukraine or from Nepal or from Pakistan, from every country, it is through social media. We might not be watching any channel or anything, but social media gives us a hope also. I was just listening to some of the lectures before I joined you. They were saying that it's a big monster in itself, the social media, and it's a double-edged sword where you're getting all the things correctly also, and where you're getting all the things wrong also, because there is no fact checking. I'm a fact checker, so I usually come to fact checking also. So fact checking is very, very important. And as and when we are talking about any kind of civil resistance or any kind of thing, we need to have the facts with us also, because social media does not provide you the fact. This is a kind of hyper they're working on the hyper speed. They really want to break the news but do not want to know what is the theory why Ukraine is and Russia is at war, but they're saying that the third world war is coming. So many of these things are there. And in India, other couple of civil resistance movement played a good role, and social media was also there to help them out. But the latest one was the Kisan Andolan, which at the end was somehow peacefully being resolved. But on 26th January on 2021, last year, before the Republic Day, there was a lot of violence. And who caused that violence is still under investigation, and why this happened is still under investigation. And then when the visit of Trump was here in Namaste Trump, during that there was some kind of riots in New Delhi also. So that is also under investigation. So some kind of things are there, and social media played sometimes a good role and most of the time bad role also, giving us the wrong information there. So my main discussion point and my concern is that we should use social media judiciously, and we must know that why we are using it, and it should not be our gratification, it should not be our need, it should be just a method of getting the information. Once we are sitting so much on social media and we try to gratify, we started enjoying, we're getting the pleasure out of social media, and then the wrong things also give us the pleasure, which is not good. So we stick to that. And I will be listening to the point of view of others also. One thing I have just written while I was researching on this area, they say that the news knows how to render its own mechanics almost invisible, and therefore it is hard to question. So invisibly, social media is doing some kind of damage to all the countries, especially the countries like Nepal, India, Pakistan, and other Southeast Asian countries where people are not much literate. They got a cell phone, they got a 3G or a 4G connection, but they're not literate enough to understand and to comprehend a news. If a rickshaw puller is having a smartphone or a driver is having a smartphone and he's not qualified, he can use it, but he is not qualified to understand and comprehend the news. So there is a problem that he might not understand that what is the reality. And he became the part of civil resistance moves there also, but he doesn't know why he was there. In Kisan movement also, when one of the people were being asked that why you are there, they don't know, because they were paid by some of the other political parties to sit on the roads. That's it. And they got the message through the social media. So that is it. It should be used judiciously. And let's see what are the other remarks from other countries.
Thank you, Dr. Samit. We will definitely come back to you. I really liked how you said that social media is a double-edged sword, like what you use it for, that really matters. And these days, it's so important with all the information that we're getting fed, like the habit that we need to, or even the consciousness of fact checkings and where the news is coming from, verifying the sources. It's so important these days. But we will come back to you with more questions. Miss Ali, If you are ready with your presentation, we can go ahead with it.
Okay, can I go through one by one or just one question? Number one question.
Oh, you can go through the whole presentation, but if you can just sum up in your own words.
Okay. If you go through the first question, I think we talk about the non-violent movement in our area in Pakistan. Then Pashtun Tahaffuz movement is, I think, the main, very best example in this context, which is eventually became a platform for the struggle for the rights of deprived people of Pashtun area, who are suffering from the problems like disappearance, extrajudicial killing, and other form of violent expression, repression at the hand of both Taliban and the state organ. They came into the limelight when PTM organized and support a gathering in Islamabad to stage a protest against the extrajudicial killing of Naqibullah Masood. You all heard about the killing of Naqibullah Masood. PTM has also organized a non-violent gathering in different cities of Pakistan, including Quetta, Peshawar, Swat. In Lahore and Karachi, social activists of the other ethnic group also conveyed their support for the PTM during all struggle, and activists from the all areas in these big cities are entered into this PTM movement. During all struggle and their activities, the government has forbidden electronic and the print media from covering Pashtun Tahaffuz movement, procession and protest. Interesting point of their struggle, as they were banned on the mainstream media, but they used social media as a tool for disseminating their message to the world, and they succeeded. The main reason they are being heard and their success was they are raised their voices for the problem of an ordinary Pashtun. Pakistan has majority of youth population and have access to the cheap and the easily available internet technology. The reform-minded and educated youth are now quickly turned to the social media for spreading the message and dissemination of information both nationally and internationally. The strategy of the group to use social media proved very effective. This was visible from the exponential growth in the number of people on daily basis. Finding reveals that the impact of the social media on Pashtun Tahaffuz movement, that majority of the participants in these gatherings were influenced by the social media, particularly Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Social media play a significant role in the mobilization of the people and source for gathering people to raise their voices in the absence of coverage by the mainstream media. If you go through the second question, why and how has it shaped, sport, provoke, impact those struggles in your country? I think I will again giving the example of Pashtun Tahaffuz movement. The response of the mainstream media to this popular disaffection was highly disappointing. The completely blackout of the mainstream media shaped the perception and perspective among the youth that the entire state machinery is against them. The immense power of the social media, boosted by the revolution in the communication technology, provide the opportunity to PTM, organizer, and followers. The member of the followers of the PTM turn on social media and mobilize people on Facebook, as I said, YouTube, Twitter, and WhatsApp. The use of social media in this connection proved highly effective in mobilizing and bringing people from all walks of life to gathering in Islamabad, Peshawar, and Swat. You can say that the social media helped significantly the Pashtun Tahaffuz movement to emerge as a rights-based movement, not only nationally, but internationally as well. The youth-led PTM struggle is declared as social media powered movement. In the presence of social media, this is not any more possible for the state to suppress and oppress the deprived and the marginal segment of the society. If we go through the next question, if you look at the case of PTM, we find that the violation and deprivation of the right was major issue that led to participation of the diverse race and groups in this resistance. The youth, whether from the Pakhtunkhwa, Balochistan, Sindh, Gilgit-Baltistan, and Punjab, was against the suppression of dissenting voices, and for them, PTM was the powerful platform to raise their voices against that forces that capture their resources and deprive them from their basic rights. There are again, third question, what is the role of media culturally? As I said, that if you ban on the mainstream media, then people automatically go through the social media. And as I discussed, the success of the PTM was based on the social media. But if we go through the mainstream media, South Asia faces a host of serious socio-political challenges that came either the worst revealed by the mass media. If mass media is not professional, as we see in the case of Pakhtunkhwa's movement, its approach, it can strengthen the problems like hate speech, xenophobia, myths and legends, religious supremacy, gender discrimination. We see all these things during this moment. But however, the professional roles of the mass media that can promote non-violent sentiments among the wider audience for describe results in non-violent civil resistance in South Asia, including following like bridge builder. If we use it in a very positive way, then we will get the result like bridge builder, watchdog, information provider, early warning system, emotional outlet, and peace motivation. You can see all these things in my presentation if you want to. Because time is very short, so I go through just these points. And the last question, I think good journalism is difficult but important and necessary. In my point of view, positive role and responsibility for mass media that can promote non-violence, especially during civil resistance in South Asia, can be follow challenging communication, channeling, in fact, channeling communication, educating, confidence building, correct misperception, making them human, identifying underlying interest, emotional outlet, framing conflict, face-saving, consensus building, and solution building. If we go through the point number 9, face-saving, consensus building, when two parties trying to resolve the conflict, the most calm and fair of this sport by reporting that they say that the media allow leaders in conflict to conduct face-saving, consensus building. So in my point of view, if you go through all these points, 10 points I discussed in my last question, the answer of last question. So this is very important that the mainstream media should play a positive role to giving voices to these type of non-violent women movement. As I discussed the case of PTM, but unfortunately in Pakistan, they were banned. So the things were totally, you can say the reversal, we saw reversal form, and there was a great disappointment on the side of these people who were already deprived from their rights. So they feel, very, they were not rely on the mainstream media, and today still they are saying that mainstream media is in the hand of state organ and the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ali, for that wonderful presentation. I think all the questions that we had tried to cover are pretty much answered by you already. Thank you so much for sharing those ground examples and the realities of people actually. You did repeatedly say that it's all about raising your voices, talking about your issues, bringing your stories out. And it's so important to consider that, because if we look at the very recent examples from the unrest in Sri Lanka as well, many raised their concerns in, I think it was early April, on how the nationwide social media blackout by the government went against people's democratic rights to express. So in a way, social media, the use of mainstream media can also be very easily manipulated to suppress the voices of public and the general people. So we have to be extra careful on that. I think that's the message I got. Thank you so much, Ms. Ali. We'll come back to you with further questions as well. Thank you. Mr. Vinay?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Namaste. Uh, so I don't have my presentation here. I'll cover two aspects talking about this issue. One is like, the what the Nepal history is and was about the civil movements and, the role of media, especially the mass media. And then I also cover the current scenario, how the mass media and even social media are playing the role, negative or positive, both way. So I have a the two type of the information I'll share based on my experience. Talking about the past in Nepal, we have a three the major incident. We call them as a the civic movement or the democratic movement. The first one was 1951. That was during the Rana regime. During that time, we didn't have much media, and we didn't have that much mass media, and so that moment was a kind of like peaceful. At the same time, it was also the supported by some international forces like the India and others also. And so during that time, so we had a the protest and other things were less, but the media presence was quite low, and so people were not that much empowered and informed and educated. So that was the first moment we witnessed in Nepal. And then second was in 1990. During that time, we had a the mass media campaign, and so mass media, especially the journalism, play a very vital role to inform and educate people about the democratic movement. And so that time it was a kind of like mission journalism was the practice during that time. But again, that time we didn't have a social media presence in 1990 because the internet was just emerging that time. Uh, Again, then we had another, the big moment that, the took place in 2006. So by the time, so we had some, the social media presence, but it was not that much, the powerful to play the role to inform, educate, or mobilize people. But again, if we talk about the mass media role, during that time, our media has played as a vital role to inform, educate, mobilize people so that we had a new type of, the political system transformed. So we were monarchy until then, but after the 2006 moment, we are now the republic country. And so the media has played very crucial role to, the convert that, the society, our system from monarchism to the liberal, more liberal and republican system. So that was the three, the major example during that time media played vital role. And after that, when there is a social media presence, nowadays also social media has a crucial role. But I like to share I like to show the one of the, the magazine cover page here. This is the Himal, one of the the very much influential, powerful magazine of Nepal. And so it has a picture, if you can see, it has a picture. It's a picture of the people, people hand carry a Facebook, and there is a topic. It's a cover page, and so it says this. The social media is a destruction tool. Now it's a weapon of destruction. So this is clearly indicate like how that we are perceiving social media and how the social media is playing their role in the contemporary political and the social change. This is also one of the cover page. This published today, so I haven't gone through all the content what is inside here, but this is one of the example nowadays, like even society and even the not only the government, the general public and the different stakeholder who want to create the peaceful and more like democratic society, they are also talking about the role of social media, whether it is playing a good role or the bad role to shape up this the peaceful moments and the people voice and give more like the empowerment to the people. So this is the example how social media is perceiving in Nepali context also. That means like social media has played a crucial role. Yeah, no doubt. We had a like the after this the earthquake in 2015, social media united people, and social media united everything, and social media used to the take a like the used to get a support from the international community also. Meantime, social media play a vital role to the run some the campaign like go back India, or go back the this country, go back this country type of moment. Also social media has the a kind of like role during that time played peacefully. So that means like that it is being used for the positive sense. Meanwhile, it is being used for the like the disinforming and the misinforming people through the fake news and the other form of like the communication. In Nepal, we are the holding a local election in 30 days or like the before, and so the social media nowadays is a tool to create a fake news, to the share the hate speech, and so to you know make a like the bad image of the politician also by the general public, and even politician also using the social media to share the fake news or the fake information, disinformation. So this is the big challenge that is happening in Nepal. So this is how we have been seeing or witnessing the context of the media and the social media. And if we talk about the mass media, we have a print, we have a radio, we have a television. So everyone doing like the content in the form of news or reviews or opinion based programs are there. But most of the program they have a like the political content, and so they have a one way of communications. People are not even getting the proper way to share their opinion, and the get the right information. So this is happening. And the recent one that recently I got a news, and so the news is about like our government is trying to impose a one other like the bill to control over social media and the people freedom. And so it is creating a threats also, like the always government is considering social media and media as a big threats. And so in the past also in 2019, then government also tried to introduce one bill, press council bill. And so under that bill, there were so many, the clauses to restrict or limit the people, the right to opinion, right to freedom, and the press freedom. So that means like, the government is taking social media as a threat. And recently they are also doing the same. But when that type of bill, the or like the any kind of restriction types of thing came up, and the people gather in the social media, gather in the sense like that they power their opinion, they speak through the Twitter and they speak through Facebook, uh, and then as a result of that, during that time in 2019 June, the government, take back the decision of introducing that, the press council bill. That is the one of the great example how social media is, supporting people's, the mechanism like people's voice tool to protect them. Again, like there is one example that was in 2019. There was a Guti bill introduced by government. Guti is one of our the traditional mechanism. I don't have that much knowledge about the Guti, but when talk about these topics and the context, that Guti bill introduced, and then people has so many dissatisfaction about that Guti bill, and so they created a movement and they share the information through the social media, and so they organize the protest physically and through social media also, and finally government decided to take back from that decision also. So these two are the good example how social media is powerful, but in the meantime this is also creating the challenge. So I'll stop here, and then if you have any question or the further discussion, and I'll come up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vinay. And that was actually a really good example of how it can be used both ways. It can be manipulated in both ways. It's so important that you have been saying in your works as well that even to inform people about what your rights are, where to share that information, where to get that information, even raising that awareness to get that information is so important. Like about whatever comes in social media and you get that knowledge, get that news, that's one thing, but talking about your rights, digital literacy, these kind of things are also very important to strengthen the people at the ground levels as well. And it's really important what you talked about. Thank you so much, but we'll come back to you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. I think Mr. Kumar has a question in the chat box already, and I wanted to ask Dr. Sumit as well about the same thing. That mainstream media, you talked previously, and you have so much experience about how to detect fake news and how to go about it. So Mr. Kumar also says the same thing. Chomsky and Herman's book, it says manufacturing consent. It clearly reveals that mainstream media cooperates with advertisers and the powers. How is it possible to change that? Also, fake news is rampant on social media. Vested interests can manipulate information, but how can we go about it? What changes can we make?
Awareness is the key. We need to read a lot. We need to read both sides of literature. As Binay sir has said that about the past history also, and then the present also, and the future also. That is very important for us to understand that. And do not accept everything per se that this has happened, so this will be the news. No, there can be a fake news also. And most of the time, the fake news revolves around the original news. So try to reach to the original news and what is the original and what could be the content. So there's a thin line of difference between misinformation and disinformation also, as Binay sir has also spoken about disinformation. So we just need to check that thin line, that where that thin line belongs to. And yes, what would I say? You should do a couple of courses, free courses on fact checking through various networks which are being provided to you, which make you analytical and which tells you about that how to analytically thought and how to go for the you have a thought-provoking story, and it is now satisfying your alter ego. You want to hear that only. Do not go for that. Try to hear the other part of the story also, even if it is a bad part. We need to understand that why they are doing it. If the crime has been done, if the writing has been done, if something has been done, we need to understand that why it has been done. Rather, yes, we have to say that violence is bad, incitement to violence is also bad, but who is doing that violence? Why have they reached to that level that they come to violence? And so we need to read the other story also. From that, we will be able to do the fact checking. Because usually it was said that in Kashmir, they usually say that Kashmiris were doing bad things to Muslim, and then Muslim repurgated that. But then there was a film that says that the story is reversed. No Kashmiri Pandit did any kind of violence to the people of Muslims there. So we need to read all kind of stories to understand that what was the reality there and how all did this has happened. And let bygones bygones is easier to say than to done. But to stay peacefully, we know that everybody shares the boundaries with each other. And as my PhD is into peace building, so I always say that the borders will always be there, but we can stay together if a thought process can go, and if there is some kind of mitigation or some kind of sitting together. So all these 4 or 5 good countries can stay together, because we just cannot change the boundaries. We just cannot change it at all. So even the conflict is going from the last 75 years, it will go for 100 more years. And I don't think so there will be any benefit to anybody in the society. So social media plays a good role in that, because we see a couple of good stories from Pakistan about India and a couple of good stories from our side to the Pakistan people, that there is no enmity in between the peoples. The common goal is to stay together happily. But yes, to achieve that, we need the help of social media. And yes, Nepal is also a very strong ally of India in all the things that we do. And I was very happy when I went to Nepal and I saw Indian currency. And we bought many things there in our own currency. And that gives us a privilege that we are brothers, strong brothers, sitting with each other and helping each other. And Sri Lanka, we saw the devastation of economy there, trying to help them also as an elder brother, because they're a small country. So I think a lot of good can be taken out from the social media, and it plays an important role. Everybody is there, and that's my point. I'm very positive about the countries and the relationship that the youth will be looking forward.
Yeah, that's such a positive news to start upon. I think Shubham Rizal is also, just to add a little bit, like, do you think restrictions on the news, on the social media, will that help or will that change anything? Restricting news, flow of news or sources of information, do you think that's gonna change anything at all?
Are you asking me this now?
Yeah, just to
Yeah,
add a little.
no, if you block the media, social media, they'll use the VPN. So
Mhm.
everywhere you can use the VPN. You just cannot block social media. Even in other countries, wherever you go, if they have the blockage, you use the VPN. So the point is that you just cannot block it. Even if you're blocking it, then people will read for more, and then there will be more inquisitiveness about that news. So let's free flow it and let's see what is the reaction of the people. Because if they read it under the restricted mode, there will be more anger and there will be more kind of suppression in them that now the news has also been curtailed to them. So let's there be a free flow of information. As a journalist also, I'm a teacher of journalism, so I give them the full information about both the sides. So let them decide which party they want to vote, which direction they want to take the country. There can be hiccups. No, nobody is as perfect as we want ourselves to be. So you just cannot restrict news at the moment. If you are restricting it, you are putting a bad name to the country as well as to the organization, because through the other sources, the news will be given to everybody.
That's true. Thank you. Did Mr. Binay want to add something?
Yeah. Just want to add something about that, the restriction part, because, the restriction is not possible. And so neither we should, advocate for that. And so it's not possible also. And so instead of restricting, what can be done is like, the one thing that, the people need to know about the digital literacy. And so part of the digital literacy, they need to know some skill, how to, identify the fake news or disinformation, how to identify the misinformation. So if the general public or social media users, they know the idea of, the filtering, this might be the fake, this might be unauthentic. And so if this type of like, the digital literacy content we produce through the different medium, like, through mass media, through social media platform, and that helps. The restriction is not a solution. That is what I
And,
am.
awareness workshop, Vanessa, awareness workshop, which we all can do
Yeah,
together for
totally
this.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then there are tools which are free tools to explore them. Invid, photo forensics, and many more tools which are freely we can use them, and we can check that it's a fake news in a
Yeah.
jiffy. This would help.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Agree.
a lot more helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Binay, and thank you, Dr. Sumit. Ms. Farzana, I would like to ask you a little bit about your experiences, if you have been involved in any kind of activities that have, helped to raise awareness, or created any platforms where people can connect, like-minded people can connect and raise their voices about a common issue. I would like you to share your personal experiences if you have any.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. In fact, I was also answering the question, your question, last question you asked from Mr. maybe Professor Sab. In fact, in my experience, if as I give you the example of PTM, Pakhtun Tahaffuz movement, when they were not allowed on the mainstream media, it created a very big problem, because as our participant and the police also said, that social media is a tool of disinformation also. So when the people are dissatisfactory with the mainstream media, then they will say what they want to say on social media. So it will be also against the interest of the country. You can say many things which go against the country, or nationalism and many other things. So in my experience, as we go through the PTM experience, government and the state also allow mainstream media, and they you can say I mean they put as they put censorship on the mainstream media, that they cannot give the news of PTM. So it was very bad. So my suggestion is, if we give freedom to the mainstream media, because we already have some gates and some filter on the mainstream media. There is editor, there are desk in charge, like me as a bureau chief. We are sitting here. We know what is disinformation, what is wrong news, or what is the news which can affect the whole scenario. So we can stop them. But if we put total censorship on the mainstream media, then automatically people use the social media, and as my colleague discussed, it will go reverse to the whole scenario. As I give you the example of PTN, we see that many disinformation, many false news are in circulation, and which create a more problem for the state. So my point of view, the mainstream media will be fully freed to give not only discussing the problem, but also giving them the solution. In our last training, we create a term of solution journalism. If we discuss all the time the problems, and we did not give them solution or not discuss the solution, then this is also a big problem. So through the mainstream media, we can give the solution. We can dissolve the problem through putting them both sides on the same table and discuss the issues in a very effective and very objective way. That it will become, I think, more powerful and more good for in this type of non-violent movements and peace.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ali. We have a question from Chandra Upadhyay. I think Dr. Sumit and Mr. Binay have answered few parts of it already, but if you would like to more on that, please do. He asks, what ethical aspects can be related with the use and reuse of social media information? How can social media users give credence for information, keep information on current affairs, and be selective about the content in social media? Any one of you can answer. I think we have talked about it a little bit, but if you'd like to add more on that, please go ahead.
So social media, you need to be on the edge all the times. You do not know where is the truth, but you must understand that you need to have that analytical power with you to understand the news. The latest news, like if we are discussing the relationship between India and Pakistan, so we latest have seen that how the government has fallen, and now the new prime minister has come in that country, and we had our elections, and by this is because there's a fake news that India also wanted to change the prime minister. It was not like that. So Imran Khan, the prime minister, was on its own saying the truth that what is happening or not. So they're trying to make a fake news out of it. And if you are literate enough to understand that, you will see that we have no role to play in that, because the prime minister is itself saying that we are nowhere into it. So that's the point that carries a weight, that you need to read it. You need to follow the trail of the news from where it is coming. So anybody can give you any fake news, and you will, if your alter ego, if somebody sitting inside you says that yes, such ho sakta hai, then you will always be even accepting the fake news. So it is very, very carefully understand the news, and you have to set aside your egos and dominant ideologies. You just have to sit like a layman, and then if you keep on reading, you will see on a jiffy, you will say that it's a fake news. And social media makes a lot of fake news. It's very easy to make a chart and then the picture of the Prime Minister of India, and then anybody should be sitting with him, and then you can say that they were talking, they were in constant touch with each other, and then many other things can be created out of it. It is a lot murkier than we expect. So my point of concern is that we should read more and to try to analyze and try to understand the politics of the countries which we are following. It can be a neighboring country, or it can be Russia and Ukraine also. In Russia, Ukraine also, there was a massacre at Bucha. So you know that who now we are reading that who has done that in Bucha. Russian government or some local militia or somebody else. So the discussion is going on. The oil prices, India is buying something from Russia, and the cuts should come to India, the ban through the USA. But everything you need to read a lot. That's the best thing you're thinking again. And Binay sir will elaborate more on that.
Thank you, Dr. Sumit. No, I am not elaborating. I am sharing my experience a little bit. Okay, the main thing, so who is the creator, content creator in the social media is the big questions. Because, there is nobody other like people or other agency doing this, the social media content production. Social media content is produced by ourselves. We are the people, we are the citizen, we create the content. So, so we need to be careful whether we are doing good or bad, or whether we are saying the authentic news or authentic views, or like, the things that doesn't harm anyone, or that are some like the things behind in our mind that create a problem. So we need to be the careful before creating the content on the social media, because we are the creator, we are the producer, nobody is doing. But when we talk about the mass media or the online media, there are some system, there is some the hierarchy of organization, there is like group, and so there is some like organogram. That's why there is some system, or the ethics can be more like the relevant to the mass media and the online media. But when we talk about the Twitter and the Facebook, we are the content producer, so we need to be careful. We need to know how to do the how to create a good content, and that doesn't harm the people. So that is what I think, the one aspect we need to think about that. And so if we think about that, and so we don't need ethics or any kind of guidelines and any restriction. Government also don't care about that if we are doing the good things. Like if you have a good example of the fraud or good example of the unethical behavior that your government is doing, you can raise your question through social media, or you can raise your question through the Facebook or Twitter and YouTube, and even in nowadays in other social media platforms are also getting popularity. That's why, like, if you have authentic the comments or the questions, you will be the answer. Like the stakeholder will be automatically accountable to answer your question. So that means, like, if you are spreading the bad news or the like the fake news, then nobody care, and so at the end of the day you will get the punishment, and on the basis of the country's law. So that is what I think.
That is very true.
I think as a journalist, we also have responsibility to be responsible when we are giving a news, or we are giving a analysis, as a doing the analyst and our analysis. So I saw in some journalists are becoming more patriotic, and they go through these type of emotional things, and this became more problems in, as in context of Pakistan and India. We see that these emotions will create also a big problem, and the base of hate speech. So as a journalist, we have a very responsible role to see the thing, to produce the content, and to give the news. So I think this is also a very big problem in mass media.
That is so true. Thank you all three for answering it so eloquently. Thank you so much. These are really, really great information that we have been able to capture. I think this question is for Ms. Farzana. Wasim Shah asks, given the history of violent insurgencies in Balochistan and KP, how difficult is it for PTM to stay non-violent in challenging times?
Yeah, I think in my experience, they were non-violent and they are non-violent movement, and they do a very responsible role to raising their voices, raising the voices of the deprived people, although they were banned in the mainstream media, but they took a very responsible role. Even in their gathering, there was 1,000 of people we see in different areas, as we give you the example of different cities, but they were non-violent, and they disseminate their message through social media, through their gatherings. But unfortunately, as I said earlier, that if the voices from the Balochistan, voices from the Gilgit-Baltistan, voices from the Pakhtun area, all things are on social media, and you can mold these things, and you can mold the ideas very tactfully in a form of disinformation or misinformation. So that's why I again and again I'm saying that if the mainstream media have a power to do a free journalism without any censorship, then they can put both the voices are the government or the state voices and also these non-violent movement voices on the same platform and give them space to discuss their problems in a very decent way, and educating people and as I said earlier, we have to go, we should follow the solution, some kind of solution in these things. Then we can play a very responsible role. My point of view and my strong belief is that that mass media should be free to say what they want to say. Any censorship will create a problems.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Ali. Next question that we have is Jalaluddin would like to know if there are any type of restrictions and that are similar when we talk about governments of Nepal, India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. Are there any similarities in the South Asian context that we can see?
Similarities can be anybody. Nobody wants free media, so I think the same is everywhere. But yes, the sanctions are less here. We are utilizing in India. I think we are a country where we can say anything to our prime minister and nothing will happen to you. And I think it is the case with other countries also, but some have maybe stricter laws or all. But here at the moment, there is no strictness on saying anything to the government, and people are saying it. And so I'm not sure about the rules in Pakistan and in Nepal, and neither I have the capacity to comment on that. But around India, we are quite freely enjoying this capacity of enjoying the privileges, and we can straight away put everything on Twitter, targeting and you can say tagging the PMO or the education minister or the health minister or whatever is our way of saying it. So if we want to take action, they will improve it, or otherwise the messages will be ignored. That's it.
Yeah, like in Nepal also, we don't have that much, the restrictions. So we are quite free, and so we are using Twitter and Facebook and other the social media freely. And even like today, we are discussing about this because of the freedom. Otherwise, that it was not possible to have this.
About three countries are sitting together on a single platform is also
we share the same land, or kind of like some some cultures. We share the
language.
ground,
our language is same.
And so that's why like there are similarity, but the context is like, there are some challenges. Still government, I don't know about the India and Pakistan, even Bangladesh and the Nepal government. Time and again, they, they consider social media or like internet as a threats. Like, and they think this is the threats, and then they try to introduce the law. And so they try to in Nepal also, like I, mention one example about this press council bill in 2019. That was, the part of this, the threat that government considered this, the popularity of the online media, internet, and the social media. They considered that as a threat, and they tried to introduce a bill that was against this, the press freedom and against the constitution. And so sometimes that happens. And again in Nepal, in the recent days also, in last 2 days, maybe like 2 days ago, I read a news about, our government is trying to introduce one, the law to control over people privacy on the social media, and so they try to restrict that. Otherwise, so they are trying. So that is the challenge, but as of now, we are quite free in Nepal also.
In Pakistan, if you want to say something in context of mass media or mainstream media, if you want to say something on a politician or democracy or this type of thing, you are free. But if you want to talk about the extrajudicial killing or disappearance, then there are some problems. So you can't say it freely, and you can't discuss all these things freely.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's wonderful to see the context of each of the countries. Really enlightening for our participants as well, I'm sure. So we have learned so far that mainstream media, social media, all of this information can be very well be used or manipulated to create a sense of panic or even hate or social injustices among communities. I think like Ms. Ali said before, we need to move towards the solutions as well, towards the positives as well. So we know that there are threats, we know that there are dangers, but how can we take social media, how can we use, how can we unleash its powers? How can we use it successfully? I think Yukta Yadav also wants to ask the same thing. What could be an effective and meaningful role of media and technology in future civil rights struggles? In what ways can media actually be exemplified as one of the pillars of democracy? I think this goes to all our speakers.
Well, I'll start from the Nepal context, and so it's clear, the media has to respect the diversity. The South Asia is quite diverse, in terms of culture, in terms of language, in terms of the caste and ethnicity, religion, and so media. Either they are mass media or like social media, they need to respect the diversity of the people, diversity of the society. If we respect the diversity, and of course, we should allow the diverse opinion and different kind of thoughts and the culture and religion. And so the media, the key role is to respect the diversity and allow the diversity in the content, in the form of content or the presence, either in the opinion or the news or whatever form. So that is one thing that the media can do. The other, the media should create a common ground. Yeah, when there is a conflict, and so always the solution should be found out if we try to to find out the common ground. So that also, the media always has to give the the preference to find out the common ground in the conflicting the parties or the issues. So these two things. Other is the we need to promote more dialogue, not the one form of communication, one way of communication. It's more like dialogue. We need to hear the people's voice. We need to hear the the marginalized voice, the women's voice, youth voice. And so we need to allow the content, or we need to allow the voice in the different medium. So that's how media can play the good role to save and to support this type of civil society movement in future. And always, the armed conflict is always harmful, and so there is no doubt that the media should not support the armed conflict or any kind of the violence. So that is what I think.
So media plays an efficient and effective role. You cannot run anything without the media. We are present everywhere, be it a peaceful gathering, be it a rioting situation, be it a war. So you just cannot deny the presence of media there. So now in civil rights movements also, if media does not report us, we do not know whether it's a civil rights movement or it's a violent movement. So media has a role to play there also. So media has to play a very effective role, and we need to tell media about our movement also, because they will then only can give the right picture to the audience that why we are sitting at the road and why we are having this kind of discussion. So at the moment, I would say that India is doing well, and I think other countries are also doing well in terms of democracy also. So it is the fourth pillar of democracy. It will remain the fourth pillar of democracy. There are some instances when we feel bad that media has done a bad job, but overall, out of 100, I can give 90 marks to media for giving us all the information at the correct manner, and not having the biased all the times. Yes, there are some times, but not all the time. So 90 marks out of 100 from my side to manage and to control the situation as and when required by them. So, but our concern is also that we should also tell media that what we are doing, why we are doing, and why we are standing here. And if we have some kind of other goals during that movement, like we had some other goals when we have the Kisan movement saw there in India, there were some other goals also, which the government was trying to figure out, and then there was a kind of discussion also on that. So that is not good from the point of having the non-violent movements and misusing the non-violent movements for the better goals of your own self, not for the country. So at the moment, I think this is good, and let's see what comes out in more in social media, what kind of new challenges that we face in social media. But to the organizers, I have to leave in next 5 minutes. At 4:30 India times, I have to have somewhere else online. So thank you for having me there. I'm listening, and I will be leaving in between. So at the
Thank
moment,
you.
I'm still there.
Thank you so much for letting us know, and thank you so much for your time, Dr. Sabir. Ms. Ali, did you want to add something to that?
Yes, I put 5 and 6 points in my presentation also in the last answer of last question. Professional mass media can help reduce conflict through presenting accurate, impartial news and impartial news. Through this way, we can play a role of bridge builder, watchdog, information provider, early warning system, emotional outlet, and peace motivator. I think these things are very important to be followed, especially in the mass media, which we are missing in Pakistan now.
That's so true. Thank you so much for adding that. I think Mr. Krishna Neopani, his question has been repeatedly answered already. I think what degree of media could cover the news and information in factual bias? Government always talks about social media are just hoax. I think he makes hoax. How people will get the real information? Who will determine? There's a saying, no news is good news. I believe social media should be not like that. I think we have talked about this already, so I'd like to move on to another question by Jalaluddin. What role civil society can play to promote a positive role of social media for promoting civil rights?
Okay, shall I say something?
Sure.
So yeah, civil society is also part of the social transformation and social change. So they are the agent of the social change, and so civil society always promote the the free voice, the freedom of association, and other freedom of organization and freedom of democracy. And so always the promote the governance, and if there is corruption happening, they should raise their voice loud, and the bring that issue into the media. And so that's how the civil society can play the crucial role, great role, to inform, educate, and inspire people on the issue, whatever happening. If that things is happening against the democracy, against the rule of law, against the constituent supremacy, so in that case, civil society's role is to bring that issue in front of the larger audience and get the attention of the government and put that issue in the table of the concerned authority and government, and always advocate for the right of the people, freedom of association and freedom of information and right to information should be protected by government. So that's how they should be the agenda of the civil society. And so those agendas should be, the spreaded or the share through the social media and even mass media. So that is what civil society can do.
In Pakistan, civil society sometimes play a very good role, especially when we see the cases of disappearance and extrajudicial killing and the human rights violation with the minorities. So they raise their voices and they become on mass media. They raise their voices. They take the position. And we see in many cases they play a very good role, and I believe that they can play a very effective role because they have strength, they have you can say resources. They have resources and they have strength and they have connection with each other, networking with each other. So they can play a very good role, and I see in past they did it in Pakistan also in some cases.
Thank you, Ms. Ali, for that. We have roughly about 15 minutes left in this event, so I would like to ask to you both, actually. You report as a journalist, you have brought stories, you have brought emotions, and so many things. You've brought that from a very ground level. When you're facing violence, when you're in the front line, when you're reporting violence, the role of nonviolence, how do you keep up that hope going? Even though you're at the front line, you're in the face of violence, how can you convince people, especially now that media, with the exploitation of media, so many people have already a bad impression, let's say, of media, that the news are this and that. So how do you gain back faith in people that journalism, media, mass media, social media can also be a good tool to carry forward a nonviolent movement?
Are you asking this from me?
To both of you, you can start, Miss Ali.
Yeah, I feel this thing when I was covering few operation in tribal area of Pakistan, which is now merged area with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. People don't have that time. People haven't not faith on us. When I asked question from them, they were always saying, they used to say that you are not giving these things on your TV because you are not allowed. Then why you are wasting our time to asking this type of question? And they are gone through this war and conflict from the last 30-40 years. So they lost the belief on the mainstream media, but through different things within the parameter of rules of camera and law of camera, we did many stories on the human rights violation in this area, and through this we take some satisfaction from these people. You can say faith, revise our faith from these people. Now, whenever I went to these areas, your credibility is most important in this context. If you are a credible journalist, people believe you, people talk to you. So credibility is most important as a whole media outlet or as a journalist. So this why I said in my last question that to be objective, to be honest, to be play their we should play their our role as a giving them solution, not creating more problem for them. Then so if community have a trust on you, they will share all the things with you. But most of the time, yes, we have a problem of mistrust from these depriving societies.
So I have a different experience because I am not working in the the day-to-day reporting media. My the work is different than like the going to the field for the reporting every day. But when I teach the journalism in some the college, like when I do the training with the journalist, and so my experience is little bit different. Why the people attacked media or a specific journalist? So that's I have a different the experience and a different opinion on that. Those journalists who are not properly reporting, not properly following the ethics, they are being threatened by the even society and even reader or the media consumer also. Like in Nepal also we have seen so many example of that, like if they are not properly covering the issue or giving the space for them and not allowing their voice through their medium, so they have a frustration with those media houses or those journalists. And so during that time, the answer is like of course the media should not be biased. Media has to cover the issue properly. Either that the media is journalist, like the when you are in the field you are the media, so you are representing the one media house. That means like people has an expectation to to make their voice loud through your medium. So that means like the those media people are like the journalists or like even YouTuber nowadays, so who are not properly following the basic ethics of journalism, or like the doing some sensitive content productions, so they are being threatened or they are being attacked. That's why, so during that time the answer is Like, if you are doing the good things and following the ethics, you are not being attacked. So but when you are like, you are doing the good things, and so again, you're like, you put yourself in the risk because there is a protest. And during that time, so you should be safe as a journalist, like as a reporter, you should be safe. You should be like, the careful. You should not go to the, the confronted area, like, the in a crowd. And so these are the basic skills this need to learn as a part of the reporting. So that is what I believe.
Mhm. Thank you so much, both of you, for those answers. I think we will have to stick to our timeline as well. I'll take a
Yeah.
last question from Vika Shrestha. She wants to know, issues and news of the public figures, celebrities get more space in the media platforms, missing some serious issues of remote communities. So how stories could get good coverage through national medias?
So what I have learned when I read the journalism or mass communication from our teacher is that, there are some content media which says sell, I mean like sell, they sold in the market. Like, if the content is related to politics, and so it is a kind of hot cake every day, like who is meeting whom, and so who is where, and so who is giving the what type of speech, and so who said what. And so this is always the hot cake in the, like, the news coverage, because politics is number one topics in the media in Nepal context. I have no idea about the Pakistan and India and Bangladesh. And again, like, the people want to follow the criminal activities, or like news related to the crime, news related to sex, news related to the, the personalities. And so that is also the things that, the media wants to sell in the sense, like, in the marketing terms, sell is for the benefit, sell is for the profit making. Like, if your content is the reachable to the many people because of the heading, because of the news content, and then of course that is related with the profit making, that is related with the sustainability. That's why the media preference and the content generation preference is always given to those, like, the areas. And so we all, that's why the organization like Antenna Foundation in Nepal and other in, the organization in even in Pakistan and Bangladesh and India are working in differently to, the bring those, the non-reported issues to the mainstream media. We say development communication. Development communication is part of the communication that always gives preference to those news or views who are underreported, and they are not even properly reported by the mainstream media. So that's the different perspective. Media house, if they are the private media, and then always they seek, they want to be a sustain from the marketing perspective. And so that's why also there is some, like, the biases.
In Pakistan also, TRPs are very important. Politics, crime, cinema, cricket, they are our selling product. But if you go through the developmental journalism, there is no rating on these stories. That's why the media house is always giving the development story in a very low ratio. If you have 6 to 7 or 9 to 10 stories in your bulletin, then there are just 1 or 2 with the developmental journalism, and more are on the nowadays politics is a very selling hot topic and selling topic in Pakistan. And then the cricket, crime, and scandal, these type of things are the selling project. So that's why the voices of the deprived people, voices of from these areas are always go under the thing, you can say under the curtain or under the carpet, because we have no time. So in every bulletin you must have some commercial also. So these are few problems. That's why we are ignoring some very important news in our daily bulletin.
Thank you so much for saying that. And thank you for today's discussion. It was such a fruitful webinar. We were able to bring both the positives and negatives of the use of social media and mainstream media as well. And we could not have chosen a better panelist to bring out so much information. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Before we wrap up, I would like to let everyone know about our People's Power blog series. We encourage everybody to write about nonviolent resistance, your views, your opinions about anything going on in your country's context or South Asian context. We are really encouraging you to write about it and submit it to Center for Social Change. We have more information on our website and our Facebook page as well. I would once again like to thank our panelists. Dr. Sumit has left us already, but still a huge thank you. And Ms. Ali and Mr. Pinay, thank you so much for your time. And I really hope that we can connect in the future on similar areas as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for organizing this, such a, the great event and the great moderation and great, the speaker colleague from Pakistan and India. And so all the, the people here who listen us and ask the questions, it's a great opportunity. And so look forward to having this type of discussion in future also. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
very
Ms.
much.
Ali.
It's a very great opportunity for me.
Thank you. I hope we can connect in the future on similar areas as well.
Yeah, inshallah.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for participating.